The soot inside your lungs is heavier than the hammer in your hand. It settles deep in the chest, a permanent weight that makes every breath a shallow, wheezing effort long before you reach the age of 30. Welcome to dulled history. Tonight, we are stepping into the heat and shadow of a medieval forge to understand why the village blacksmith, the man, essential to every knight, farmer, and builder often, had the shortest life expectancy of anyone in the parish. We aren't talking about the glory of forging swords for kings. We are talking about the toxic fumes of charcoal, the blindness caused by staring into the fire, and the deafening ring of the anvil that isolated these men in a world of silence. We are going to walk through a single day in the life of a smith in the 14th century. We will feel the blistering heat that warps the skin, taste the metallic dust that coats every meal, and experience the brutal, rhythmic labor that grinds a human body down to nothing. There is no romance here, only the relentless physics of iron and fire. If you are ready to leave the modern world behind, find a comfortable position. Let your shoulders drop. The fire is already lit, and the iron is waiting. You wake before the sun does, pulled from sleep not by light, but by the dull, throbbing ache in your lower back. It is a familiar companion, this pain a tightness that runs from the base of your neck down to the hips, a permanent reminder of the thousands of times you have lifted the hammer and brought it down. The air in the room is cold, shockingly so, a stark contrast to the inferno you will stand beside for the next 14 hours. You take a breath, and the first sound of your day is a wet, rattling cough. It shakes your ribs, expelling a dark gray phlegm that tastes of charcoal and sulfur. The village healers say it is just a dust cough, common among those who work with fire, but you know better. It is the trade settling inside you, claiming you from the inside out. Your living quarters are small, a lean-to attached directly to the workshop to capture the residual heat of the forge. It smells of unwashed wool, dry straw, and the pervasive, acrid scent of oxidized iron. You swing your legs over the side of the pallet, your feet finding the packed earth floor. It is freezing. The dampness of the English autumn has seeped through the wattle and daub walls, chilling the marrow of your bones. You rub your hands together, the skin rough as tree bark, calloused so thickly that you can pick up a hot coal for a second or two without feeling the burn. But the cold makes the joints stiff. Your fingers, permanently curled slightly inward from gripping the haft of the hammer, protest as you stretch them. There is no breakfast yet. Eating requires an appetite, and the nausea from the fumes of yesterday still lingers at the back of your throat. Instead, you reach for the water jug. The ceramic is cold against your lips, the water tasting faintly of the clay and the metallic dust that settles on everything you own. You drink deeply, trying to wash away the taste of ash. You pull on your tunic, a heavy, coarse wool that was once brown but is now stained a uniform, greasy black. The leather apron comes next, a thick, stiff slab of cowhide that hangs from your neck to your knees. It is scarred with thousands of tiny pockmarks, burns from flying scale and sparks that would have eaten through to your skin. This apron is your shield, your armor against the daily assault of the fire. You step through the low wooden door into the smithy. The transition is immediate. Even with the fire banked low for the night, the room holds a dry, suffocating warmth. The darkness here is absolute, save for the faint, sullen glow of the embers deep in the hearth. The smell is intense, a mixture of coal dust, hot metal, scorched leather, and sweat. It is the scent of industry, dense and heavy. You move by memory, your feet knowing every uneven patch of the floor, every pile of scrap iron waiting in the corner. You find the flint and steel on the workbench, striking a spark to light a tallow-dip candle. The small flame sputters, casting long, dancing shadows against the soot-blackened walls. The forge itself dominates the room, a raised hearth of stone and brick waist-high. It is the altar at which you worship and suffer. You pick up the rake, a simple iron tool you forged yourself years ago, and begin to disturb the sleeping beast. You pull back the layer of gray ash on top, revealing the glowing heart of the charcoal beneath. It pulses with a faint orange light, barely alive. This is the critical moment of the morning, reviving the fire without suffocating it. You add a handful of fresh charcoal, the black lumps clattering softly onto the embers. Charcoal is expensive, a fuel that requires burning entire forests in slow, controlled mounds, and you cannot afford to waste it. Every piece represents a cost that cuts into your meager earnings. You move to the bellows. They are huge, lung-like contraptions of wood and leather, mounted on a frame behind the chimney. You grab the handle, the wood polished smooth by your father's hands and now yours, and pull. The leather creaks, a groan that sounds like an old man standing up, and then you push. A gust of air hisses through the iron pipe leading into the heart of the fire. The reaction is instant. The orange glow brightens, shifting to a menacing red. You pump the handle again. Creak, whoosh again, creak, whoosh. The rhythm is automatic, a muscle memory that allows your mind to drift while your body performs the labor. With each breath of the bellows, the fire wakes up. Sparks begin to dance upward, vanishing into the wide, blackened chimney hood. The smoke changes, thickening as the fresh charcoal catches. It rolls out into the room before the chimney draw fully takes hold, a stinging gray cloud that makes your eyes water. This is the smith's tear, the constant irritation that leaves the whites of your eyes permanently red and inflamed. You blink it away, not stopping the rhythm of the bellows. The heat begins to radiate outward, pressing against your face, drying the moisture on your skin instantly. The workshop reveals itself in the growing light of the fire. It is a chaotic, cluttered space to the untrained eye, but to you it is a map of obligations. In the corner, a pile of broken plowshares waits for repair, the iron rusted and caked with dried mud. Hanging from the rafters are horseshoes, dozens of them, strung together like heavy iron garlands. On the workbench lie the tools of your trade, tongs with jaws of various shapes, chisels, punches, and the hammers. The hammers are the family you spend the most time with. The heavy sledge for the coarse work, the crossbeam for moving metal sideways, the flat-faced smoothing hammer for the finish. They sit in a row, their handles darkened with the oil from your palms. A noise from the doorway breaks your focus. It is the apprentice, a boy of 12 from the village whose father paid you a sack of barley to take him in. He rubs sleep from his eyes, looking small and fragile in the harsh light of the forge. He doesn't speak, he knows better. In the morning, words are unnecessary energy. He moves to the water barrel, breaking the thin film of ice that might have formed if the night was truly cold, and begins to fill the quenching trough. The slosh of water is the only sound beside the roar of the fire. You gesture to the bellows, and the boy takes over. He is too light to work them efficiently, having to throw his entire body weight onto the handle to get a good blast of air, but it frees you to prepare the metal. You watch him for a moment. He is coughing already, a dry, hacking sound. You wonder briefly if he will last the winter, or if his parents will pull him out when they see how thin he gets, how the soot settles in the creases of his neck and never washes off. You pick up a bar of iron stock. It is heavy, cold, and rough. Iron is stubborn material. It does not want to change. It wants to remain a rock, cold and immovable. Your job is to convince it otherwise, using force and heat. You thrust the end of the bar into the center of the coals, burying it deep where the heat is white and intense. Now you wait. This is the part of the job that requires the most judgment. Pull the iron out too soon, and it will be too cold to work. You might crack it, or simply waste your energy hitting metal that won't move. Leave it in too long, and it will burn, the carbon eaten away, turning the iron into a sparking, useless sponge that crumbles under the hammer. You watch the fire. You don't look at the flames, but at the color of the heat radiating from the center. You are looking for a specific shade of lemon yellow, a brightness that borders on painful to behold. The heat beating against your face is intense now, a physical pressure. You can feel the moisture evaporating from your eyeballs. This radiant heat, staring into it day after day, year after year, cooks the lenses of the eyes. Old smiths often go blind, a slow clouding of vision that starts as a haze and ends in darkness. You squint, shielding your eyes with a calloused hand, checking the color. Ready, you mutter. The boy pumps harder, the fire roaring like a captured storm. You reach in with the tongs, gripping the bar. You pull it out, and the workshop is suddenly illuminated by the glowing metal. It sheds sparks as it moves, little falling stars that die on the dirt floor. You swing it to the anvil. The anvil is the center of your world, a massive block of iron mounted on a thick stump of elm wood. It has a voice, a pitch that changes depending on where you strike it. You lift the hammer. It weighs 4 pounds. You bring it down. Clang. The sound is not a dull thud. It is a high-pitched, piercing shriek of metal on metal. It cuts through the air, vibrating in your teeth. In the confines of the small workshop, the noise is deafening. It is a percussive assault that happens thousands of times a day. Your ears ring constantly, a high whine that never goes away, even in the silence of the night. You have learned to read lips because half the words spoken to you sound like they are coming from underwater. Clang, clang, clang. You strike a rhythm. Hit the hot iron to move it, then tap the anvil face to keep the rhythm while you turn the piece. Strike, tap, turn. Strike, tap, turn. The iron yields, squashing down like stiff clay. You are making a simple hinge today, a task that requires flattening the bar and rolling a barrel for the pin. It is repetitive work, but it demands precision. One bad blow and the metal thins too much, creating a weak point that will snap in a month. The heat from the iron rises into your face, smelling of ozone and sulfur. You breathe it in. There is no other air to breathe. The ventilation in the shop is poor. The smoke hangs in a layer above your head, slowly descending as the day goes on. By noon, the air will be blue with it. This smoke is not just wood smoke. It carries the impurities of the coal, tiny particles of rock and sulfur, and sometimes lead if you are working with scrap. It coats the throat, burning the delicate tissues. You can feel the grit between your teeth. The iron cools rapidly, the glowing yellow fading to orange, then a dull cherry red, then back to gray. As soon as the color leaves, the metal becomes hard again. You stop. You cannot force it now. You thrust it back into the fire. Air, you command. The boy leans on the bellows again. While the iron heats, you lean against the workbench, taking the weight off your back. Your knees ache. The vibration of the hammer travels up the arm and settles in the shoulder and the spine. You are 26 years old, but you walk like a man of 50. Your spine is curving, the heavy muscles of your right shoulder pulling your skeleton out of alignment. You have the smith stoop, a posture that marks you as clearly as the burns on your arms. The village is waking up outside. You can hear the muffled sounds of life through the walls, a dog barking, the rumble of a cart, the distant calling of voices. They sound separate from you, part of a world that operates in the sunlight. You live in the cave. People are wary of the smithy. They need you, they cannot survive without you, but they fear the fire and the noise. They think there is something unnatural about bending iron, something akin to magic. They don't see the toll it takes. They don't see the way your hands shake when you try to hold a spoon at dinner, the tremors caused by nervous system damage from the fumes and the exhaustion. The iron is ready again. You pull it out, the heat searing your apron. You work quickly, turning the end of the bar over the horn of the anvil to curl it. The hammer falls with practiced accuracy, tucking the metal into a perfect loop. A piece of scalar flake of hot iron oxide flies off the piece and lands on your forearm just above the glove. It sizzles. You don't stop. You don't flinch. You finish the curl, then brush the burning flake away. It leaves a small white crater in your skin, capped with a black scab. Your arms are a constellation of these scars, a map of painful memories. You don't even feel them anymore. The morning wears on. Sun rises higher outside, but in here the light remains the same, the flickering orange of the forge and the gray gloom of the smoke. You move from the hinge to a plowshare. This is heavier work. The plowshare is a massive triangular blade that drags through the rocky soil, and the farmers bring them in dull and chipped. You have to heat the edge and hammer it out to sharpen it. It requires the sledgehammer. You call the boy over. He looks terrified. He picks up the heavy sledge, the handle nearly as long as he is tall. You hold the plowshare with the tongs, positioning it on the anvil. You tap the spot with your small hammer. Strike, you say. The boy swings. He is clumsy and the sledge hits the anvil with a jarring thud, missing the iron. The shock travels up the tongs into your hands, jarring your wrists. Again, you say, keeping your voice flat. Anger takes energy. He strikes again. This time he hits the metal. Boom. The sound is deeper, a bass drum to the tenor of your hand hammer. You work in tandem. You tap to set the rhythm and indicate where to hit. He swings the sledge. Ding boom, ding boom. The sparks fly in a shower, bouncing off your leathers, landing in your hair. You smell singing hair, a smell so common you stopped noticing it years ago. The physical exertion is immense. You are lifting and turning a 20-pound piece of steel with one hand, extended at the end of a pair of tongs, while managing the placement for the striker. Your forearm burns with lactic acid. The sweat begins to pour off you, soaking the wool tunic under the leather. It runs into your eyes, stinging with salt and grit. You cannot wipe it away. Your hands are full of hot iron. You blink rapidly, shaking your head like a horse trying to clear flies. There is a danger here that goes beyond the burns. The air you are breathing is changing. The charcoal you bought this week is cheaper, lower quality. It burns with a slightly yellowish smoke. As you inhale, you feel a dizziness at the edge of your perception. It is carbon monoxide, the silent killer of the forge. It creeps up on you, a heaviness in the limbs, a fog in the brain. If you ignore it, if you push through, you might simply faint. And if you faint in a smithy, you might fall forward. You might fall onto the anvil, or worse, onto the hearth. You have seen a man fall into his own fire before. You remember the smell of roasting meat that turned out to be human. You step back for a moment, signaling the boy to stop. You lean on the hammer, gasping for air that isn't there. Open the door, you wheeze. The boy runs to the door and flings it wide. A shaft of pale, clean sunlight cuts through the gloom, illuminating the swirling dust motes in the air. You stare at the light, breathing greedily. The air from outside is cool and sweet. It tastes of damp earth and rotting leaves, but to you it tastes like life. You stand there for a long moment, letting the dizziness pass, letting the heart rate slow. A farmer is standing in the doorway, blocking the light. He holds a broken chain in his hand. He looks at you, his eyes adjusting to the darkness. He sees a figure coated in black grime, eyes red-rimmed and watering, chest heaving. He sees a creature of the underworld. "Can you fix it?" he asks, holding out the chain. He doesn't ask how you are. He doesn't offer water. He just wants the metal made whole. You nod, taking the chain. It is cold and greasy. 2 pennies, you say. Your voice is a rasp, the vocal cords thickened by smoke. 2, he scowls. The smith in the next village charges 1. Then walk to the next village, you say, turning your back on the sunlight. You know he won't. The next village is 6 miles away and he needs the chain for his wagon today. You walk back to the fire. The brief respite is over. The dizziness is gone, replaced by the familiar dull headache that sits behind your eyes. You thrust the chain into the coals. The cycle begins again. Heat beat cool, heat beat cool. As you work, you think about the old smith who taught you. He died at 32. His lungs simply stopped working. He spent his last week propped up in bed, gasping for air, turning a terrifying shade of blue. They said his lungs were hard as stone when he died. You are 26. You do the math in your head, distracting yourself from the pain in your shoulder. 6 years, maybe less if the winter is hard and the ventilation stays this bad. You look at the boy struggling with the bellows. You are teaching him how to die, you realize. You are passing down a trade that kills its masters, but what else is there? The land is owned by the Lord. The trade is all you have. It is the only way to buy bread to pay the tax to exist. You pull the chain from the fire. It glows with a fierce, deadly beauty. You swing the hammer. The noise shatters the thought. There is no time for philosophy. There is only the iron. The iron does not care about your lungs. It does not care about your eyes. It demands to be shaped, and it will take everything you have to shape it. The morning bleeds into the afternoon. The pile of finished work grows. A repaired plowshare, a hinge, a set of nails, the chain. The pile of fuel shrinks. The exhaustion settles deeper into the marrow. You are thirsty, a thirst that water cannot quench, a dryness that feels like your very blood is turning to dust. But you do not stop. To stop is to let the fire die. To let the fire die is to fail. And in this world, failure is a luxury you cannot afford. You lift the hammer again. The ring of the anvil echoes out into the village, a bell tolling the hours of your life away, one strike at a time. The sun has climbed to its highest point, though you only know this by the angle of the light slicing through the single open shutter. In the forge, high noon does not bring brightness. It brings a suffocating stillness to the air outside that makes the draft of the chimney falter. The smoke, previously drawn upward with a steady purpose, now eddies and swirls around your head, a gray phantom that refuses to leave. The heat is no longer just radiating from the fire. It is trapped in the stones of the walls, in the packed earth of the floor, in the leather of your apron. The entire room has become an oven, and you are the roast. You wipe your forehead with the back of your hand, a futile gesture that only smears a fresh layer of soot across your brow. The sweat is constant now, running in rivulets down your spine, soaking the waistband of your breeches. It stings the sores on your skin, the heat rash that never truly heals because it is never given a chance to dry out. You take a moment to lean against the wall, finding a spot where the stone is merely warm rather than hot. Your heart is hammering a rhythm against your ribs that feels dangerously out of sync with the steady beat of the hammer you have been swinging for 6 hours. The door darkens. The light is blocked not by a farmer with a broken plow, but by a silhouette that carries the distinct outline of arrogance. It is a squire, a young man barely older than your apprentice, dressed in a tunic of dyed blue wool that costs more than your entire workshop. He holds the reins of a horse, but this is not the shaggy, tired workhorses you are used to shoeing. This is a destrier, a war horse. The animal is massive, a mountain of muscle and controlled violence. It stamps a hoof, the iron shoe striking the stone threshold with a spark that rivals your forge. The beast smells of expensive grain, groomed leather, and an aggression that has been bred into its bloodline for 10 generations. You push off the wall, your spine protesting the movement. You know what this means. Shoeing a peasant's cob is a chore. Shoeing a knight's charger is a dance with death that pays in copper and anxiety. He threw a shoe on the ridge, the squire says, not bothering to greet you. The Lord requires it fixed immediately. We ride for the tournament at York tomorrow. You nod. You do not speak. You simply gesture for the boy to pump the bellows to wake the fire from its brief slumber. You approach the horse slowly. Animals are excellent judges of character, but in a smithy they are terrified. The smell of burning coal, the hiss of steam, the sharp tang of hot iron, it triggers every prey instinct they possess. This horse rolls its eye, showing a crescent of white panic. It snorts a wet, guttural sound and shifts its weight. You can see the muscles in its hindquarters bunching, thick ropes of power capable of shattering your femur with a single kick. You reach out a hand, letting the animal smell the soot and sweat on you. You murmur a low, meaningless sound, a vibration in your chest rather than a word. You run your hand down the shoulder, feeling the heat of the animal, the twitching skin. You move to the leg, signaling the squire to hold the head tight. If this horse rears in the small shop, it will bring the roof down. You bend at the waist, a position of extreme vulnerability, and tap the back of the horse's fetlock. Up, you whisper. The horse hesitates, then lifts the massive leg. You take the weight of it in your lap. It is heavy, impossibly heavy. You are supporting a quarter of a ton of animal on your own thighs, your knees bent, your back curved. You are locked in place. If the horse decides to kick now, you cannot move away. You are trapped in the kill zone. The old shoe is gone, ripped off by the rocky terrain of the ridge. The hoof is split slightly at the toe, the horn ragged. You reach for your hoof knife and the rasp. This is the part of the job that is not about fire, but about anatomy. The hoof is not a dead block of wood. It is a living, complex structure. You pare away the overgrown wall, the knife slicing through the tough keratin like cheese. You have to be careful. Cut too deep and you hit the quick, the sensitive vascular tissue underneath. Make the horse bleed, and you will not only be kicked, you will be flogged by the squire for damaging valuable property. The smell of the parings is distinct, a pungent, cheesy odor of old protein and ammonia. It mixes with the smoke in the room, creating a cocktail that makes your stomach turn. You work quickly, your hands moving with a dexterity that belies their scarred appearance. You level the sole, rasping it flat so the new shoe will sit flush. The sound of the rasp is a dry, rhythmic SHRR, 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 a sound that sets your teeth on edge. Iron, you grunt to the apprentice. The boy brings the red-hot shoe you prepared earlier. It glows with a menace in the dim light. This is the moment of truth. You cannot measure the hoof with a ruler. You measure it with the fire. You take the hot shoe in your tongs and press it directly onto the living hoof. HISSSSS. A cloud of thick, acrid white smoke explodes upward, engulfing you and the horse. The smell is atrocious, burning hair and fingernails amplified 1,000 times. It is the scent of cauterization. The horse jerks its leg, a massive spasm of fear, but you hold on. You have to. You clamp the leg between your knees, gritting your teeth, your face inches from the burning hoof. You are checking the fit. The hot iron burns a seat into the horn, sealing the tubules and ensuring a perfect match. You look through the stinging smoke, checking the outline. It is tight at the heel. You toss the shoe back to the apprentice who runs it to the anvil. You release the horse's leg, standing up quickly to relieve the cramping in your back. The squire is coughing, waving a perfumed handkerchief in front of his face. He looks at you with disgust. You are covered in white dust from the hoof and black soot from the fire. You look like a demon rising from a sulfur pit. You do not care. You care only about the heel of that shoe. You return to the anvil. 3 blows, clang, 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 you widen the heel. You rush back to the horse. The shoe is now black, cooling, but still too hot to touch. You dip it in the water, trough HISSS just for a second to take the surface heat off, then nail it on. Driving the nails is a test of nerve. You are driving a wedge of iron into the hoof wall, aiming for a white line of insensitive horn that is barely 1/8 of an inch wide. Angle the nail inward and you prick the sensitive flesh, laming the horse. Angle it outward and the wall splits. You tap the nail, tink. The sound is solid. You drive it home. Thud, thud, the horse stands still. You do this 6 times. You twist the ends of the nails off, clinch them down, and file them smooth. When you drop the hoof, your legs are shaking, not from fear, but from the static exertion of holding the weight. You slap the horse on the flank, a signal that it is done. The squire tosses a coin onto the workbench. It spins and settles in the dust, a silver groat. It is more than you expected, but less than the risk was worth. He turns and leads the horse out without a word. The sudden silence when they leave is heavy, pressing against your eardrums. You look at the coin. It will buy a sack of good flour, maybe a piece of salted pork. It will not buy back the cartilage in your knees. Food, you say to the boy. It is not a request, it is a timestamp. The sun has moved enough to signal the midday break. You sit on a low wooden stool, your body collapsing into the posture of rest. The apprentice brings the pottage pot from the back of the hearth, where it has been simmering all morning. Pottage is the fuel of the peasant, a thick, gray stew of oats, peas, and whatever vegetables were cheap or available. Today, it contains a few wizened carrots and onions that have seen better days. There is no meat in it. Meat is for feast days or for poachers who are willing to risk hanging. You take your wooden bowl. Your hands are black. There is no point in washing them. The grease and soot are worked so deep into the pores that they would require sand and lye to remove, and you have neither the time nor the skin for that. You eat with a spoon whittled from ash wood. The first mouthful is scalding hot, burning the roof of your mouth, but you swallow it anyway. The heat in your stomach is different from the heat on your skin. It is a comforting fire. But there is a texture to the food that you cannot escape. Grit. The millstones that grind the grain are slowly disintegrating, shedding tiny particles of stone into the flour. Every bite of bread, every spoonful of porridge carries this abrasive dust. You can feel it grinding between your molars. You run your tongue over your teeth. They are worn down, flattened by a lifetime of eating stone. The old men in the village have teeth worn down to the gum line, the nerves exposed, causing agony with every meal. You are already feeling the sensitivity in your back teeth. You eat in silence. The boy eats ravenously, scraping the bottom of his bowl. You push half of yours towards him. You are too tired to eat. The nausea from the hoof smoke is still lingering, a greasy feeling in the back of the throat. You drink water instead. The water is tepid, sitting in the barrel near the fire, but it is wet. You drink a quart, then another. You sweat it out as fast as you put it in. Your gaze drifts around the shop while you rest. You look at the tools. They are an extension of your body, but they are also your captors. There is the swage block, a heavy cast iron block with holes of various shapes, used for forming bolts and shapes. There is the mandrel, a cone of steel for making rings. Every tool there represents hours of labor to create, and thousands of hours of labor to use. They are durable, waiting. They will outlive you. The anvil will certainly outlive you. It has been in this spot for 50 years since your father set it. It has absorbed millions of blows. It has not changed. You have. You close your eyes for a moment. The darkness is a relief, but the afterimage of the fire burns on the back of your eyelids, a bright, shifting blob of yellow and white. You can hear the blood rushing in your ears, a whooshing sound that mixes with the high-pitched whine of the tinnitus. It is never truly quiet in your head. Silence of the room is just a canvas for the noise of your own damaged nerves. Up, you say. The break is over. If you sit too long, the muscles will seize, the sweat will cool and give you a chill, and the will to stand will evaporate. You have to keep moving. Momentum is the only thing keeping you upright. The afternoon work is different. The heavy forging is done for the day. The large fires consume too much fuel to keep running at full blast for 12 hours. Now is the time for small work, precision work. Nails. The village always needs nails. Nails for building, nails for coffins, nails for horses, nails for carts. They are the currency of construction, and they are made one by hand. You take a rod of iron, thin and round. You heat the end. It takes only a minute in the coals. You pull it out, place it on the anvil. Tap, tap, tap. You draw the point out, 4 quick blows to make a square taper. You place the rod over the hardy hole, a square hole in the anvil face, and snap it off, leaving the hot piece stuck in the hole. You grab the nail header, a tool with a hole in it, and place it over the hot iron. Bang! One heavy blow to flatten the top into a head. You knock the nail out. It falls into the dust, cooling from red to black. The entire process takes 30 seconds. You do it again. Heat, taper, cut, head. Clang, 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 thud. And again. It is a trance. You do not think about the nail. Your hands know the distance, the weight, the timing. Your mind detaches. You float somewhere above the anvil, watching this soot-stained creature perform a mechanical task. This is the danger of the afternoon, the monotony. It invites the mind to wander, and a wandering mind makes mistakes. A mistake with a hammer means a crushed thumb. A mistake with the iron means a burn. You watch the pile of nails grow. They are identical, or as close to identical as human hands can make them. Each one represents a roof shingle that will stay on in a storm, a door that will hold against the wind. There is a pride in this, buried deep beneath the exhaustion. You are the glue that holds the village together. Without your nails, the barns collapse. Without your shoes, the horses go lame. Without your plowshares, the fields go untilled. You are the most essential man in the valley, yet you live on the edge of poverty, eating grit and breathing poison. The boy is flagging. He is pumping the bellows with a lethargic rhythm, the air flow uneven. The fire sputters. Steady, you warn, you don't look at him. You are looking at the color of the iron. You are teaching him to read the language of heat. Iron tells you its temperature by its color, but the scale is subtle. At the faint red of a dying ember, the iron is black hot, still hot enough to burn flesh to the bone, but too cold to shape. At cherry red, it is plastic movable. At orange, it is soft. At yellow, it is like butter. At white, it is liquid. But there are dangers. If you heat high-carbon steel to white, it sparkles. That is the carbon burning out, ruining the metal. You have to know the exact shade of orange yellow that allows for welding without burning. You know this shade better than you know the color of your mother's eyes. The afternoon wears on. The light in the doorway shifts, the sharp rectangle of sun stretching and softening, turning golden. The heat in the shop does not dissipate. It just changes character. It becomes a heavy, humid blanket. The air is thick with the dust of the charcoal, a fine black powder that hangs suspended in the sunbeams. You breathe it in. You can feel it coating the back of your throat. You hawk and spit, a glob of black mucus hitting the floor. The black lung is not a myth. It is a daily reality. Your shoulder is screaming now. The rotator cuff, ground down by the repetitive overhead motion, is inflamed. Every time you lift the hammer, a sharp line of pain shoots down to your elbow. You adjust your grip, changing the angle to spare the joint, but this just shifts the strain to your wrist. There is no way to work without pain. There is only the management of where the pain lives. A neighbor walks by the open door, a weaver carrying a bundle of wool. He glances in, sees you in the dark, sparks flying around your head. He makes a sign of the cross, a quick, superstitious gesture, and hurries past. They fear the fire. They fear the man who masters it. In the old stories, smiths were often magicians or dealing with devils. You understand why. To take a rock from the earth and turn it into a knife feels like alchemy. But the price is not your soul, it is your body. You finish the batch of nails, 100 of them. A good afternoon's work. You sweep them into a small keg. The sound of them rattling together is like rain, a cold, metallic rain. You check the water in the trough. It is low, boiled away by the quenching of hot iron. Fill it, you tell the boy. He takes the bucket and goes to the well outside. You take a moment to lean against the anvil, pressing your hip against the cool iron of the base. You look at your hands. They are trembling. A fine, high-frequency tremor that you cannot stop. It is the vibration of the hammer, echoing in your nerves long after the blow has landed. You try to make a fist. Your fingers are stiff, locking in the curled position. You have to use your other hand to pry them open. The boy returns, struggling with the heavy bucket. He sloshes water onto the floor, turning the dust into a black mud. You don't scold him. You remember being 12. You remember the weight of the water, the heat of the fire, the fear of the master. You are the master now, and you are too tired to be cruel. Rake the fire, you say. We have the blade to finish. The blade, a knife for the tanner. It needs to be hard, sharp, and durable. It requires a different kind of focus. You have to heat treat it. This is the most scientific part of your day, though you don't know the word science. You know it as the mystery of the quench. You bury the blade in the coals, bringing it up to critical temperature. You watch the steel. It loses its magnetism at a certain heat. You can feel it with the tongs, and the color shifts to a uniform, austere red. You pull it out. Now comes the moment that decides the life of the tool. If you plunge it into the water now, it will freeze the structure of the steel, making it incredibly hard but brittle as glass. If you let it cool in the air, it will be soft and useless. You have to quench it, then temper it. You plunge the blade into a bucket of oil, not water. Oil cools it slower. Whoosh! A pillar of yellow flame erupts from the bucket as the oil ignites. The shop is lit up with a sudden, violent brilliance. You hold the blade under the oil, counting the seconds. The fire dances around your hand, licking at the leather of your glove. You do not pull back. You hold it until the vibration in the tongs stops, until the steel stops singing. You pull it out. It is smoking, black and ugly. But inside, the crystal structure of the metal has changed. It is now hard. You wipe the oil off with a rag. The smell of burnt oil is heavy and fatty, different from the sharp scent of the coal. It smells like a kitchen gone wrong. You are not done. It is too hard. If the tanner drops this now, it will shatter. You have to temper it. You hold it over the fire, far above the flames, letting the heat gently soak back in. You watch the oxide colors run down the steel. Straw yellow, bronze, purple, blue. You are looking for a straw color, a light gold. This will give it toughness without losing the edge. There it is, the gold line. You dip it in water to lock it in. Hiss. The steam rises, curling around your face. You are satisfied. It is a good blade. It will cut hide for 5 years before it is worn down. You place it on the bench. The sun is dipping lower now. The light outside is turning the deep, rich gold of late afternoon. Shadows in the corners of the shop are lengthening, creeping towards the center of the room. The day is far from over, but the frantic energy of the midday is fading, replaced by a heavy, plodding endurance. You have survived the noon rush, the dangerous horse, and the delicate quench, but there are still hours to go before the fire can sleep. And if the fire cannot sleep, neither can you. You reach for the water jug again. It is empty. You stare at the dry clay bottom. The thirst is a physical weight in your chest. You look at the pile of scrap iron in the corner. It needs to be sorted. The work never ends. It just changes shape. You pick up the tongs. The cycle continues. The scrap pile is a graveyard of good intentions and bad luck. You are bent double over it, your spine protesting with a sharp, hot line of pain that runs from your tailbone to your neck. The light in the corner is dim, filtered through the smoke that still hangs heavy in the rafters, so you have to identify the metal as much by touch as by sight. You run your gloved hands over the cold, jagged shapes. Here is the twisted remains of a scythe blade, snapped on a hidden rock in the high meadow. There's a pot hook rusted through at the bend. A handful of horseshoe nails, bent and useless, pulled from the hooves of a dead mule. To anyone else, this is rubbish. To you, it is currency. Iron does not die. It only waits to be reborn. But the rebirth requires sweat, and you have precious little left to give today. You select the scythe blade. It is good steel, better than the bog iron the bloomery down the river produces. It has a high carbon content, making it hard enough to hold an edge. You can fold it, weld it, and turn it into a pair of shears or a good knife. You toss it onto the keep pile. The sound of metal clattering on dirt is dull, absorbed by the layer of cold dust that covers the floor like black snow. The boy is sweeping. It is a task you give him when his arms are too tired to lift the hammer, but you need him to stay awake. If he sits, he sleeps. If he sleeps, he might roll into the fire. It has happened before, not to him, but to others. You have seen the scars on the village elders, the melted skin that looks like candle wax. You keep him moving for his own safety. The swish-swish of the broom is a soft counterpoint to the ringing in your ears, which has shifted pitch from a high whine to a low, throbbing hum. The door darkens again. You tense. Visitors at this hour usually mean trouble. It is too late for a simple repair. The light is failing, and you cannot see to do fine work. It is too early for the social calls of the evening. You straighten up, your knees popping audibly in the quiet shop. It is the reeve. Hugh is a man of the village, a peasant like you, but he carries the white wand of office that marks him as the Lord's eyes and ears. He is the one who ensures the labor dues are paid, the harvest is tallied, and the law is kept. He steps into the smithy, his nose wrinkling instantly at the smell. He is a man of the open fields, used to the scent of wheat and wet earth, not this concentrated industrial stench. Miller's axle broke, Hugh says without preamble. He does not look at you. He looks at the fire, checking to see if you are burning wood from the Lord's forest or charcoal you paid for yourself. He is always looking for a fine. I know, you say. Your voice is rough, a dry croak. You haven't spoken in 2 hours. He brought it by yesterday. I told him it needs a new collar. I don't have the iron for it. He needs it for the harvest, Hugh says, tapping the wand against his leg. The Lord wants the grain in before the rain comes. If the mill stops, the village stops. Then give me the iron, you counter. You wipe your hands on your apron, crossing your arms. It is a defensive posture, but also a way to hide the tremor in your fingers. I cannot forge ere Hugh. I used my stock on the horses for the tournament. Hugh stares at you. This is the dance of the manor. Everyone is squeezed. The reeve is squeezed by the steward by the Lord, and you are squeezed by the physics of the material world. You cannot make iron appear. You are a smith, not a wizard, despite what the superstitious whispers might say. I will open the stores, Hugh says finally, grudgingly. You can have 2 bars, but the axle must be done by matins. By matins, you laugh, a short, harsh bark that turns into a cough. I need to sleep, Hugh. I have been here since before the cock crowed. And you will be here until the work is done, Hugh says. He turns to leave, silhouetted against the golden light of the dying afternoon. Or you can explain to the steward why the flour is wet. He leaves. The threat hangs in the air, heavier than the smoke. Matins is the first prayer of the morning, long before dawn. It means you will not sleep tonight. It means the fire must be kept fed, the bellows pumped, the hammer swung, all through the hours when the human body is designed to shut down. You look at the boy. He has stopped sweeping. He heard. He knows what it means for him, too. He looks small, his face streaked with black tears where his eyes have watered. Go, you say to him. Fetch the iron from the manor stores. Run. If we start now, we might get 2 hours of sleep before dawn. He drops the broom and runs. You watch him go. You envy his energy, even as you pity his future. You turn back to the anvil. There is no point in raging against it. Anger burns energy you cannot spare. You have to prepare the shop for a night shift. You need light. The tallow dips are low. You check the supply of rushlights reeds dipped in animal fat. They burn fast and smoky, giving off a feeble, flickering light, but they are all you have. You set 3 of them in the iron holders on the walls, not lighting them yet. You will save them for when the sun is truly gone. You need to clear the forge. The miller's axle is a heavy job. It will require a large fire, a deep bed of coals. You rake out the stony, glassy residue of the burnt impurities in the charcoal. It fuses into lumps that block the airflow. You hook them out with the rake, dragging them onto the floor. They glow dully, cooling rapidly into ugly gray rocks. You shovel them into the corner. The heat radiating from them warms your ankles. While you wait for the boy, you turn to the grindstone. You have a few knives that need sharpening, small jobs you can do while the fire builds. The grindstone is a large wheel of sandstone, mounted on a wooden frame with a crank. It sits in a trough of water to keep the stone wet and the steel cool. You sit on the bench behind it. You press the pedal with your foot. Creak splash, creak splash. The wheel begins to turn. It is heavy, its momentum building slowly. You pick up a knife, a simple eating whittle belonging to a shepherd. The blade is dull, nicked from being used to cut everything from cheese to wood. You press the steel against the spinning stone. Shrrrrrrrrrrrr. The sound is different from the hammer. It is a constant grinding hiss. A stream of yellow sparks erupts from the contact point, flowing over your hands like liquid fire. You do not feel them. Your hands are so calloused they are essentially leather gloves themselves. You watch the water on the stone. It carries the gray sludge of ground sandstone and steel. It is a slurry of erosion. You rock the blade, finding the angle. If you are too shallow, you don't create an edge. If you are too steep, you blunt it. You have to find the perfect geometry by feel. You watch the sparks. They tell you the quality of the steel. High carbon steel throws branching sparks, little exploding stars. Soft iron throws long, straight lines. This knife is cheap, the sparks are straight. The water sprays onto your apron, soaking through the leather to the wool tunic and then to your skin. It is cold, a shock against the heat of the room. Your foot pumps the treadle rhythmically. Your leg burns. It is the same motion as walking, but you are going nowhere. You are walking 1,000 miles in place. Danger of the grindstone is subtle. It is not the burn of the forge. It is the stone itself. Sometimes, if a stone has a hidden crack, the centrifugal force of the spinning can cause it to explode. A chunk of sandstone the size of a head, flying at 50 miles an hour, does not wound. It kills. It takes a head off. You have seen it happen in the city, in the great armor workshops. You check the stone every morning, tapping it with a hammer to hear if it rings true. If it sounds dull, it is cracked. This one rings true, but you never fully trust it. You keep your head to the side, out of the direct line of fire. You finish the knife. You run your thumb lightly across the edge. It catches the ridges of your fingerprint sharp. You toss it into the finished basket. Next is a sickle. The curve makes it difficult. You have to rotate your wrist, following the arc of the blade. Your wrist clicks. The tendonitis is a constant companion, a hot wire running up your arm. You grit your teeth. You do not stop. To stop is to let the wheel slow down. To restart, it takes twice the energy. You keep the momentum. The boy returns, breathless, dragging a handcart. In it are 2 bars of iron, thick as your wrist. The reeve was generous, or the miller is desperate, probably both. Good, you say. Build the fire, deep. You stand up from the grindstone, your legs stiff. The transition from sitting to standing takes a moment, your balance wavering as the blood rushes back to your head. The sun is now below the tree line. The light in the shop has turned blue and gray, the shadows stretching out to swallow the corners. You light the rushlights. The flames catch, sputtering in the grease. They cast a weak yellow pool of light that barely reaches the anvil. The shop transforms. In the day, it is a workplace. At night, it is a dungeon. The corners disappear into blackness. The fire becomes the only reality. The miller's axle is a 2-man job, but the boy is too weak to be a true striker for this long. You will have to do the heavy lifting. You lift the iron bar. It is cold and greasy. You shove it into the heart of the fire. Pump, you say, and don't stop. The bellows groan. The fire roars. You stare into the flames, your eyes narrowing. You are about to engage in a wrestling match with the element of earth, using the element of fire as your weapon. While the iron heats, you take a moment to prepare your own body. You drink the last of the water. You retie your apron, pulling it tighter to support your lower back. You wrap a strip of leather around your right wrist, binding it tight to support the tendon. It cuts off the circulation slightly, making your fingers tingle, but it dulls the pain. You check the hammer. You choose the 4-pounder. It is a lump of scarred iron on a hickory handle. You test the balance. It feels heavy tonight, heavier than it did this morning. The gravity seems to have increased as the day wore on. The iron is ready, white hot. Out, you yell. You pull the bar. It is blindingly bright in the dim shop. It lights up the boy's face, making him look like a ghost. You swing it to the anvil. Crack. The first blow is the hardest. You have to break the resistance of the surface. You are upsetting the end, thickening it to form the collar seat. You strike with everything you have. The shockwave travels up your arm, rattles your teeth, and settles in your heels. Crack, crack, crack. You fall into the rhythm. It is a grim, joyless rhythm. There is no artistry here, just brute force. You are fighting the metal. It wants to stay a bar. You want it to be an axle. It fights back, cooling rapidly, hardening. Scale, you shout. The boy rushes in with a wire brush, scrubbing the hot iron between your blows to remove the oxidizing flakes. If you hammer the scale in, it creates a weak point. He is close, his face inches from the flying hammer. You have to trust him not to flinch. You have to trust yourself not to miss. The heat is immense. The sweat is no longer dripping. It is running in sheets. Your clothes are plastered to your skin. The air in your lungs burns. The carbon monoxide is rising again, a silent tide. You feel the edges of your vision blurring. You shake your head, scattering droplets of sweat that hiss when they hit the anvil. Heat, you say, thrusting the bar back into the fire. You lean on the hammer handle, gasping. The pause is only 2 minutes. Just enough time for the iron to soak up the heat, not enough time for you to recover. You look at your hands. The leather wrap on your wrist is soaked dark with sweat. Your knuckles are white. A face appears at the window, just an opening in the wall with a wooden shutter, now propped open. It is a woman from the village holding a small bundle. It is Ilara, the weaver's wife. Is it true, she whispers, looking at the fire with wide eyes. About the plague, they say a peddler fell dead in the market at Oakhaven. News travels faster than plague and often with less accuracy. Oakhaven is 20 miles away. I don't know Ilara, you say, your chest heaving. I only know iron. They say the boils are black, she continues, her voice trembling, and that it takes the strong as well as the weak. You look at the boy, who is pumping the bellows. He is thin, weak. You look at yourself. You are strong in a way, but your lungs are black already. What difference would a boil make? Go home, Ilara, you say gently. Bar your door, boil your water, pray. It is the only advice you have. You are not a priest. You are a mechanic of the solid world, and the plague is a ghost. She nods and vanishes into the darkness. The fear she leaves behind is colder than the night air. You pull the iron out, crack. The work consumes the fear. You cannot think about death when you are trying to keep a collar round. You have to focus on the geometry. The hammer blows must be precise. You are drifting into a state of Smith's trance, where the conscious mind shuts off and the lizard brain takes over. You are a machine. Lift, strike, turn. Lift, strike, turn. The collar is taking shape. It is ugly work, heavy and rough, but it is strong. It will hold the weight of the millstone. It will grind the grain. It will feed the village. You are forging the survival of your neighbors, blow by blow. The boy stumbles. He misses a stroke on the bellows. The fire dips. Wake up, you roar. It is not cruelty, it is necessity. If the heat drops, the weld will fail. If the weld fails, the axle snaps. If the axle snaps, the village starves. He jerks awake, pumping frantically. You see the terror in his eyes. You hate yourself for putting it there, but you hate the alternative more. You finish the first end. You quench it. The steam fills the shop, a dense white fog that smells of wet charcoal and hot metal. It wraps around you, obscuring the boy, the walls, the tools. For a moment you are alone in a white void. You close your eyes and lean your forehead against the cool, damp wood of the quenching trough. You stay there for 10 seconds. It is the closest thing to a vacation you will have this year. Turn it, you say, emerging from the steam. You have to do the other end. The night is deepening. The rushlights are burning low. The shadows are getting longer, reaching out to grab your ankles. Outside, the church bell rings, the Angelus. 3 sets of 3 strokes, then a long pealing. It marks the end of the day for the field workers. For the plowman, the shepherd, the weaver, the day is done. They are heading home to their fires, to their pottage, to their rest. You listen to the bell. It sounds mournful, a tolling for the time you have lost and will never get back. For you, the bell does not mean stop. It means the second shift begins. The miller's shift, the work that happens in the dark. You look at the boy. He is slumped over the bellows handle, his chest rising and falling in hitching sobs of exhaustion. He can't do it. He is 12. He is broken. You make a decision. It will cost you, but you make it anyway. Go, you say. He looks up, confused. But the axle, I will finish it, you lie. You can't finish it alone, not easily. It will take twice as long and hurt twice as much. But if you keep him here, he will make a mistake. He will get hurt, or he will simply collapse. Go sleep in the straw, you say. I will wake you for the filing. He doesn't argue. He stumbles past you into the lean-to. You hear him collapse onto the pallet. Silence returns to the shop. Now it is just you and the iron, and the fire, and the shadows. You look at the unformed end of the axle. You look at the hammer. You take a deep breath, inhaling the soot, the sulfur, the dust of your own life. You grip the handle. Your hand cramps, locking onto the wood. You force it to hold. Right, you whisper to the empty room. Let's dance. You move to the bellows yourself. You pump. You run to the anvil. You strike. You run back to the bellows. You are doing the work of two men. It is a frantic, desperate dance. The shadows on the wall mock you, mimicking your movements, giant, distorted monsters flailing in the dark. The pain becomes a background noise, a static that you tune out. You exist only in the moments of impact, the spark, the flash, the ring. You are not just a blacksmith anymore. You are a creature of the forge, consumed by the process. The world outside, the village, the plague, the reeve, the stars, has ceased to exist. There is only the red glow of the metal and the black void of the room. You are burning your life force to shape a piece of cold rock, and in the dark, with no one watching, you strike the iron with a fury that feels dangerously like prayer. The night has fully arrived. The air coming through the door is freezing, biting at your sweat-soaked skin, but you do not feel the cold. You are burning from the inside out. You lift the hammer. Clang. The sound echoes into the night, a lonely, defiant note against the silence of the sleeping world. You are the heartbeat of the village, beating on through the dark, even as the village sleeps, unaware of the cost of its pulse. The solitude of the smithy at night is a heavy, tangible thing. During the day, the noise of the village acts as a buffer, a chaotic wall of sound that keeps your thoughts contained within the rhythm of the work. But now, with the shutter barred against the draft and the village asleep under a blanket of wood smoke and silence, there is nowhere for your mind to hide. The only sounds are the ones you make, the wheeze of the bellows, the roar of the forced air, and the percussive violence of the hammer. Each strike seems louder than it should be, a gunshot in a library, and you find yourself flinching slightly at the echo, waiting for someone to bang on the door and tell you to stop. But no one comes. The village needs flour more than it needs silence. You are working the second collar of the axle now. Without the boy to hold the long iron bar, you have had to improvise. You have rigged a chain from the rafters, a heavy loop of iron links that cradles the far end of the axle, allowing you to rotate it by yourself. It is a clumsy solution. The chain swings, fighting you, making the iron feel alive and disobedient. Every time you strike, the bar wants to bounce, to twist out of the sweet spot on the anvil face. You have to clamp it down with your left hand, using your own body weight as a vice, while your right hand delivers the blow. It is a biomechanical nightmare. Your left bicep is screaming, a constant burning cramp that feels like a hot wire has been threaded through the muscle. Your grip is failing. You can feel your fingers starting to numb, the sensation fading from the pinky and ring finger, the first sign of nerve compression. You shake your hand out, a spray of sweat flying from your fingertips, but the numbness remains. You simply grip harder, trusting the friction of the leather glove to do what your muscles no longer can. The fire is your only companion, and it is a temperamental one. At night, the draft changes. The cool air descending the chimney fights the hot air rising, creating a turbulence that makes the flames dance unpredictably. You have to pump the bellows with a steady, hypnotic rhythm to maintain the welding heat. Whoosh, creak, whoosh. You count the strokes. 100 for a soak, 200 for a weld. The numbers tumble through your head, meaningless markers of time in a night that feels endless. You pull the iron from the fire. It is sparking, a sign that the surface is melting. You have to move fast. You swing the heavy bar from the fire to the anvil, the chain rattling overhead like the fetters of a dungeon ghost. You drop the hammer, thud. The sound is dull, wet. The metal is at welding heat, soft and sticky. You aren't shaping it now, you are fusing it. You strike rapidly, light blows to knit the collar to the shaft. Tap, 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 tap. You are sewing with iron. The sparks that fly are not the bright stars of high-carbon steel. They are heavy, molten globs of flux and oxide that stick to your apron and burn slow, smoldering holes. One lands on your neck, just above the collar of your tunic. You feel the sear, the smell of singing skin. You do not stop. You cannot stop. If the weld cools before it is set, the axle will fail. The miller's cart will collapse. The grain will rot. You will be blamed. You finish the pass and thrust the bar back into the coals. Heat, you whisper to the empty room. You lean on the bellows handle, your forehead resting on your forearm. The sweat is dripping from the tip of your nose, landing on the dusty floorboards, creating a tiny map of dark, wet spots. As you stare into the red heart of the fire, your mind begins to unspool. Exhaustion is a powerful drug. It strips away the filters of the conscious mind, letting the subconscious bleed through. You start to see things in the flames. Not the devils or angels the priest talks about, but memories. You see your father's hands. He was a big man, bigger than you, with a beard that always smelled of singed hair. He died when you were 19, his heart simply giving out in the middle of shoeing a mule. He fell backward, the hammer still in his hand, and was dead before he hit the ground. You remember the look on his face, not fear, but surprise, as if he couldn't believe the machine had finally stopped. You inherited the shop, the debts, and the anvil. The anvil. You look at it now, sitting in its pool of shadow. It is a massive block of wrought iron faced with a plate of steel. It has a personality. It has a sweet spot, right in the center, where the rebound is perfect, returning the energy of the hammer to your hand. It has dead spots on the edges where the energy dies. It has a chip on the heel from when your grandfather dropped a sledgehammer on it. It is the altar of your family, the stone upon which 3 generations of men have broken themselves. You realize with a sudden, lucid clarity that you hate it. You hate the anvil. You hate its silence, its hardness, its indifference. It demands to be fed with muscle and blood, and it gives nothing back but noise. You want to take the sledge and smash it, to crack it in two, to silence it forever. The anger flares up in your chest, hot and sudden, masking the fatigue. You win, you mutter to the block of iron. You always win. You pull the axle out. The anger gives you a burst of energy. You strike the iron with a fresh ferocity. Clang, clang, you are punishing the metal. You are beating your own frustration into the shape of a wheel axle. The sparks fly violently, illuminating the shop in strobe light flashes. In those flashes, you see the tools hanging on the walls, the tongs, the swages, the pokers. They look like instruments of torture, and they are. They are the tools you use to torture the iron, and the tools the iron uses to torture you. The weld is done. It is solid. You smooth it out with the flatter, a tool you hold in one hand while striking it with the hammer in the other. It leaves a smooth, satin finish on the metal, hiding the violence of the blows that created it. You check the straightness. You sight down the length of the axle, rotating it slowly. It wobbles slightly. It is bent. Damn it, you hiss, heat distortion. The cooling metal pulls and warps. You have to straighten it. But you can't heat the whole thing again. You'll ruin the temper of the bearing surfaces. You have to do it cold or black hot. You take the axle to the floor. There is a gap between 2 of the heavy oak uprights that support the roof. You wedge the axle between them, using the building itself as a leverage point. You grab the long end of the bar. You heave. The wood of the shop groans. The iron resists. You push harder, your boots slipping in the cold dust. You are wrestling the skeleton of the building. You feel a pop in your lower back, a sensation like a dry stick snapping under quiet water. A sickening warmth spreads through your lumbar region. You gasp, dropping to one knee. The pain is not sharp. It is a dull, expansive nausea that radiates down into your hips. You have slipped a disc or strained a ligament. You don't know the names of the parts. You only know the taxonomy of the pain. This is bad back pain, distinct from tired back pain. You stay on the floor for a minute, breathing through your teeth. The air down here is cooler, but the dust is thicker. You can taste the floor earth, metal, charcoal, spilt ale, urine. It is the taste of the trade. You force yourself up. You have to check the axle. You sight down it again. It is straight. Good enough for a miller, you grunt. You hoist the axle back onto the cooling rack. It weighs 60 pounds. Lifting it with your back screaming is an act of sheer will. You separate the pain from the action. The pain is a signal, you tell yourself. Ignore the signal, you rack the bar. It clangs against the others, a bell tolling the end of the heavy work. But you are not done. You are never done. You limp back to the water bucket and drink. The water is gone. You drank the last of it hours ago. You forgot. The bucket is dry, save for a ring of black slime at the bottom. The thirst hits you again, a sudden panicked dryness in the throat. You need water. You walk to the door. You open it. The night air hits you like a physical blow. It is shockingly cold, carrying the scent of frost and wet leaves. The contrast with the heat of the forge is violent. Your sweat-soaked clothes turn instantly to ice against your skin. You shiver, a violent convulsion that rattles your teeth. You step out into the yard. The sky is clear. Millions of stars hang above you, a spilled bucket of diamond dust against the velvet black. They are indifferent, cold, and beautiful. You look for the plow, the hunter. They are in their places, moving through the sky with a precision you can never match. You wonder what it would be like to be a star burning in silence, untouched by hammers, unburdened by gravity. You go to the well. The rope is rough in your blistered hands. You lower the bucket. Splash. You haul it up. The water is black in the moonlight. You plunge your face directly into the bucket. The cold is agony and ecstasy. You drink like an animal, gulping mouthfuls of freezing water that hurts your teeth and shocks your stomach. You wash the soot from your face, scrubbing the grit from your eyes. The water runs down your neck, turning the soot on your chest into black rivulets. You stand there for a moment, dripping, shivering, looking at the sleeping village. To your left is the baker's house. It is dark, but you know he will be rising soon. His day starts when yours ends. To the right is the tanner's yard. Even in the cold, the smell of urine and rotting flesh drifts over the fence. You don't mind it. It smells like work. You see a movement in the shadows near the tree line. A fox, a wolf. No, it is a person. A figure wrapped in a dark cloak, moving silently towards the woods. A poacher. Maybe Thomas, the second son of the widow who lives by the stream. You know he sets snares for rabbits on the Lord's land. If he is caught, he will lose a hand, or hang. You watch him. He pauses, looking back at the glow of your forge door. He sees you standing there, a wet, black giant in the moonlight. He freezes. You raise a hand, not a wave, just a stillness. I see you, I saw nothing. He nods, barely a dip of the head, and vanishes into the trees. You understand him. You are both creatures of the margin, working while the world sleeps, stealing life from the darkness. He steals rabbits, you steal time. You turn back to the shop. The warmth rushes out to meet you, but now it feels stale, suffocating. You step back inside and close the door, shutting out the clean air and the stars. You are back in the cave. The axle is cooling, but there are other things. The reeve mentioned the plowshares. You look at the pile, 3 of them. They need pointing. It is lighter work than the axle, but it requires precision. You can't use the sledgehammer. You have to use the hand hammer. Your wrist throbs in anticipation. You walk to the apprentice's lean-to. You listen at the curtain. His breathing is deep, rhythmic, punctuated by soft snores. He is deep in the sleep of the young. You don't have the heart to wake him, not yet. You will let him sleep until the first gray light touches the window. You will do the pointing yourself. You return to the fire. It has banked down, a sullen bed of red coals under a layer of gray ash. You rake it. The sparks fly up, lethargic now. You add fresh charcoal. The act of feeding the fire is automatic. You don't think about the cost anymore. You just feed the beast. As you wait for the heat, you sit on the stool. You look at your hands. They are resting on your knees, palms up. They are destroyed. The skin is a landscape of scars, white burn marks, blue pinch marks, black tattoos where cold dust has entered open wounds and healed over. The fingernails are cracked and stained permanently black. The joints are swollen, the knuckles like walnuts. These are the hands of an old man, attached to the arms of a young one. You try to straighten your fingers. They resist. The tendons have shortened, pulling the fingers into a permanent grasp. The claw. You have seen it on every smith over 40. You are getting it early. You massage the palm of your right hand with the thumb of your left, digging into the rock-hard muscle at the base of the thumb. It hurts, a sharp, bruising pain, but it loosens the grip slightly. You think about the girl you saw at the harvest festival last month, the miller's daughter. She had ribbons in her hair and hands that looked soft like dough. She smiled at you when you bought an ale. Or maybe she was smiling at the man behind you. You don't know. You didn't speak to her. What would you say? I make the nails that hold your house together. I smell like sulfur and sweat even after I bathe. I will be dead by 30. You look at the fire. It is ready. You pick up the first plowshare. It is a triangular wedge of iron, the business end of the plow. It is worn round and smooth by the earth. It needs to be drawn out, sharpened, and hardened. You place it in the fire. The night stretches on. The rhythm changes. It is slower now, more deliberate. You are conserving energy. You don't strike with fury, you strike with gravity. You lift the hammer and let it fall, guiding it rather than driving it. Clang, clang, clang. The intervals between blows are longer. You are listening to the metal. The solitude begins to play tricks on your ears. You hear voices in the ring of the anvil. Sometimes it sounds like your name. John, John. Sometimes it sounds like a bell. Sometimes it sounds like a woman laughing. It is the acoustic pareidolia of the smithy, the brain trying to find pattern in the noise. You shake your head, trying to clear the static. Just the hammer, you say aloud. Just the iron. But the isolation is wearing you down. You feel small. In the day, you are the master of the fire. At night, you are a servant, tending a hungry god that doesn't care if you sleep. The shadows in the corners seem to lean in, watching. You feel the weight of the stone walls, the weight of the roof, the weight of the darkness pressing down on the small circle of light where you stand. You finish the first plowshare. You toss it onto the sand floor to cool slowly. You don't quench plowshares. They need to be tough, not brittle. If they hit a rock, they should bend, not snap. You pick up the second. Your stomach growls. A deep, hollow ache. You haven't eaten since the pottage at noon. The body is consuming itself. You can feel the hunger as a lightness in the head, a trembling in the limbs. You look around for food. There is a crust of bread on the shelf, left over from yesterday. It is hard as rock, likely gnawed on by mice. You don't care. You take the bread. You break a piece off, it snaps like a twig end, put it in your mouth. You suck on it, letting your saliva soften the stone-like dough. Tastes of stale flour and mouse droppings. It is delicious. You eat it slowly, working the jaw muscles that are tight from clenching your teeth. While you chew, you look at the pile of horseshoes hanging from the rafters. There are dozens of them. Each one represents a horse. Each horse represents a rider. A knight, a merchant, a messenger. They travel the world. They see cities with paved streets, cathedrals with glass windows, oceans that stretch to the edge of the world. You see the inside of this room. You see the fire. You see the anvil. You travel nowhere. You are the anchor. You stay in one place so that others can move. The realization is profound and depressing. You are trapped in this smoky box, trading your life for the mobility of others. The bitterness rises again, sour as the bile in your empty stomach. But then you look at the plowshare in the fire. You think about the furrow it will cut, the seed that will be planted, the wheat that will grow, the bread that will be baked. You are not just an anchor. You are the root. Without me, you whisper, you all starve. It is a small arrogance, a tiny spark of pride to hold against the dark. It is enough. You pull the second plowshare from the fire. You swing the hammer. The sound is different now. The anvil is hot. It has absorbed the heat of the work all night. The ring is duller, softer. It is a tired sound. The night is turning. You can feel it. The air coming through the cracks in the wall is shifting. The intense, biting cold of the middle night is softening into the damp, gray chill of the pre-dawn. The birds are starting to stir. A single rooster crows in the distance, a premature, scratchy sound. You have one plowshare left. Your body is a wreck. Your feet are swollen in your boots. Your back is a solid block of pain. Your eyes feel like they are filled with sand. But you can see the end. The finish line is not a ribbon. It is the bottom of the pile. You put the last piece of iron in the fire. Last one, you tell the fire. Then we sleep. The fire crackles, a pop of sap in a piece of charcoal. It doesn't care. It will burn as long as you feed it. You lean against the bench, waiting for the heat. You close your eyes for a second, just a second. Your head drops. Your chin hits your chest. You jerk awake. You fell asleep standing up. It happens. It is dangerous. If you fall forward, you slap your own face. The soot on your cheek feels rough. Wake up, you growl. Finish it. You pull the iron out, you hammer. The strokes are sloppy now. You are just mashing the metal into shape. It doesn't need to be pretty, it just needs to be sharp. You hit it. You turn it. You hit it. Done. You drop the hammer. It falls to the floor with a thud that signals the end of the battle. You toss the plowshare onto the sand. You stand there, swaying slightly. The silence rushes back in, filling the space where the noise was. It is deafening. Your ears are ringing so loudly it sounds like a choir of cicadas. You look at the window. The black square is turning a deep, bruised purple. Dawn is coming. The night shift is over. But the day shift is about to begin. You have to prep the shop. You can't leave it like this. You have to rake the fire again, bank it so it stays alive but doesn't burn fuel. You have to sweep the scale. You have to put the tools away. You move like a zombie, performing the rituals of closure. You sweep the floor. The dust rises in a cloud, catching the faint light from the dying fire. You rack the hammers. You quench the slack tub, adding water to replace what boiled away. You walk to the lean-to. You pull back the curtain. The boy is still asleep, curled in a ball under a moth-eaten blanket. He looks peaceful. You reach out and shake his shoulder. Up, you say. Your voice is a ruin. He groans, rolling over. Is it morning? Close enough, you say. The fire needs coal. He sits up, rubbing his eyes. He looks at you. He sees the exhaustion etched into your face, the black mask of soot, the red eyes. He doesn't say anything. He knows better. He gets up, pulling on his boots. You walk back into the shop. You stand by the anvil one last time. You run your hand over the face. It is still warm. It is always warm. It is the heart of the house, and it never truly sleeps. You need to lie down just for an hour, before the first farmer arrives, before the sun fully clears the trees. You head towards your own pallet in the corner, but as you turn, you hear it. The sound of a horse, a heavy horse approaching the door. You freeze. It can't be, not this early. A fist bangs on the door. Boom, boom, boom. Smith, a voice shouts. It is rough, commanding. Open up, the king's mail must ride. You close your eyes. You let your head fall back. You let out a breath that is half sigh, half sob. There is no sleep. There is only the iron. You turn back to the door. You reach for the latch. You are dulled history, and the history never stops. The rap on the door is loud enough to wake the dead, and after a night on the bellows, you feel closer to the dead than the living. You pull the latch. The door swings inward, letting in a blinding horizontal slice of pre-dawn sunlight that cuts through the smoky gloom of the shop. Standing on the threshold is a royal messenger, mounted on a sweating, lathered horse. The animal's breath clouds the air, and its ribs are heaving with forced exertion. The messenger is wearing a leather jerkin and a heavy woolen cloak, and he carries a small, locked metal pouch slung over his shoulder, the king's mail. His face is chapped and furious, his eyes red-rimmed from riding through the night. He is not here to ask. Shoe, he barks, pointing a gloved hand down at the horse's rear hoof. The shoe is missing, the hoof wall chipped and raw from galloping across the rocky royal road. Lost it 10 miles back. I ride for Winchester. If I am delayed, it is treason. He does not need to elaborate on the consequences. Treason is a rope around the neck. His fear is a tangible thing, radiating off him like the heat from your own body. You look at the boy, who has followed you from the lean-to. His mouth is open slightly in fear. This is the job that requires speed, not strength. It must be done right, but it must be done in minutes, not hours. It is the highest stakes farriery you will ever face. Start the fire again, you command the boy, your voice flat with resignation. Deep and fast. The boy runs to the bellows, and the mournful creak whoosh starts again, but this time with a frantic, desperate energy. You grab the hoof knife and the rasp. You move to the horse. It is a creature of high breeding, less terrified of the noise than the peasant's plow horse, but stressed by the violent ride. It shifts nervously, tossing its head, the foam around its bit thick with sweat. You lift the leg. The muscle is twitching under your hands. You work with an intensity that borders on delirium. You pare the hoof, rasping the horn until it is flat and level. You need a perfect surface to take the weight of the new shoe, a fraction of an inch off, and the horse will be lame within an hour of riding. You are working by feel alone, your senses honed by a lifetime of repeating this task. Iron, you say. You do not look at the fire. You trust the sound of the bellows and the boy's desperation to tell you it's hot. The boy pulls a new, ready-made shoe from the stock, one you forged months ago, hoping it was the right size. It glows cherry red. He brings it over, dropping it on the ground near you. You snatch it up with the tongs and slap it against the hoof. HISSSSS. The smell of burning protein is overwhelming. The horse snorts, pulling its leg away, but you clamp down with your knees, holding it steady. You stare through the acrid smoke, checking the brand. Perfect fit. You toss the shoe back to the boy, who plunges it into the water trough with a hiss. You grab the hot, fresh shoe with your bare, gloved hand, balancing it on the trimmed hoof. You pick up the box of nails. You drive the first one home. Tink thud. The sound is solid. The second one, the third, 6 nails in 60 seconds. You twist the ends of the nails, run the rasp over the clinches to smooth them down, and drop the hoof. The messenger stands there, watching you with grudging respect. Reaches into his pouch, not for payment, but for a piece of heavy lead. He presses it against the fresh clinches, leaving the royal seal a mark of authority, verifying the work was done on the king's business, not yours. He is not paying you for the work. He is sealing the fact of your labor into his mission. The payment will come later, a coin from the village head, deducted from your yearly rent. The messenger swings his leg over the saddle, giving you a sharp, curt nod, the only thanks you will receive. He kicks the horse in the ribs, and the animal gallops away, the sound of its new shoe striking the dirt fading rapidly into the dawn. The noise is gone, the moment of high stress ended. You walk back to the anvil. The boy is staring at the fire, still pumping the bellows with a nervous energy. Stop, you say. He stops. The silence this time is a velvet drop, soft and absolute. The sun is officially up. The first rays, clean and gold, cut through the gaps in the stone, painting stripes of yellow on the soot-blackened floor. Outside, you hear the muffled sounds of a village awakening. The clatter of a wooden bucket, the cry of a child, the low rumble of the miller's wagon, likely coming to check on his axle. Your day, which should have ended hours ago, is now officially beginning anew. You look at the boy. He is trembling slightly, from cold, from exhaustion, from the brush with the king's authority. The fire is banked, you say. Sweep the floor, clean the clinker, then go sleep. But the miller, I will handle the miller, you interrupt. You have earned your rest. He nods, relieved, and starts the familiar swish-swish of the broom. You know he will not truly rest. He will just fall into a stupor until the sun is high and the demands begin again. You walk over to your own pallet. Your exhaustion is a physical weight pressing you down into the straw. The back pain is still there, a constant dull throb. Your ears are still ringing. You lie down, pulling the scratchy wool blanket over your filthy clothes. It does nothing to warm you. The sweat on your body is still icy, clinging to your skin. You close your eyes. The back of your eyelids is not black. It is a throbbing, pulsing yellow. The afterimage of the fire has been permanently seared onto your retina. You listen to the sounds of the morning. The sounds of a world that is clean, moving, and unaware of the price of the iron that holds it together. You think of the miller's axle cooling on the rack. It is straight, strong, and will last 10 years. You think of the messenger's horse, carrying the king's word on a fresh shoe. You think of the 3 plowshares ready to turn the earth. You have done your job. You have paid the price for the village's security with the very substance of your body. Your mind drifts, finally untethering from the immediate. You think about the black dust in your lungs, the ruined cartilage in your joints, the constant tremor in your hands. You realize that the long life expectancy of the medieval peasant, if they survived childhood, did not apply to you. The priest might live to 70, the farmer might make it to 50, but the blacksmith, you are the sacrifice. You exchange years for heat and health for hardness. You are, quite literally, consumed by your profession. The scent of the shop, the metallic tang of oxidation, the dusty perfume of the dry straw, it is the smell of your life. It is not a good smell, but it is real. Sleep finally begins to creep in, a cold, dark wave washing over the edge of your consciousness. You do not dream of fire or iron. You dream of silence. You dream of a world without noise, without heat, without impact. As you slip into the dark, you are aware of one last thing, the metallic, coppery taste in your mouth. You realize it is the constant low-level taste of iron dust, but also perhaps the taste of your own failing blood. It is the cost, settled in full. The anvil waits, the fire sleeps, but you, the smith, are resting only until the sun is high enough to bring the first supplicant with a broken tool, starting the rhythm all over again. You are the man who will die young so that everyone else may live longer. And in the medieval world, that was the ultimate unspoken contract. You finally find the quiet you have earned. The memory of the king's seal pressed into the fresh iron is still tingling in your hand, a physical echo of power. You have collapsed onto your straw pallet for less than 5 minutes, the rough wool blanket pulled over your head in a desperate, futile attempt to find darkness and silence. The apprentice is still sweeping, the swish-swish a gentle, monotonous sound that should be lulling you to sleep, but the adrenaline from the midnight shift and the messenger's urgency keeps your eyes burning open in the dark. The deep throbbing in your lower back has intensified, a hot, angry center of pain that is impossible to ignore. Every muscle in your body is loose and trembling from the immense labor of the night, yet your mind is racing, cycling through every flaw in the axle, and every moment you fell asleep standing up. You are too tired to sleep. The expected interruption arrives not with a frantic knock, but with the familiar sound of a heavy wooden cart grinding to a halt outside the shop door. The miller. You push yourself up, an action that sends a bolt of pain through your lumbar spine and up the back of your skull. You move out of the lean-to, crossing the threshold back into the main shop. The boy has stopped sweeping, frozen by the sound of the approaching master. The light in the shop is no longer the eerie purple of pre-dawn, but the bright, unfiltered yellow of a clear morning. It reveals the chaos you worked through, piles of clinker, tools scattered around the anvil, and the fresh, gray coating of ash and scale over everything. The miller is a short, muscular man, his clothes dusted white with flour smelling of yeast and damp sacks. He doesn't look sympathetic. He looks at your face, dark with soot and exhaustion, and then directly at the cooling rack. He bypasses the usual pleasantries of a greeting, which you would have ignored anyway. "Is it done?" he asks, his voice sharp with urgency. You nod towards the 6-foot length of iron cooling near the wall. It is done, forged, welded, and straightened. It will last longer than your mill. He walks over to it, inspecting the heavy collars you spent the middle of the night shaping. He runs a thick, flour-coated hand over the metal. He is looking for flaws, for cracks, for any sign of a bad weld. You watch him, knowing the iron is sound, but knowing also that the social contract requires this moment of scrutiny. He is paying you to be his surety, to take on the risk of failure so he doesn't have to. He grunts, a sound that passes for satisfaction. Good, the water is rising. We need it mounted immediately. The grain will sour if we wait. 2 bars of iron, you remind him. and 4 pennies. He nods, pulls a small leather purse from his belt, and tosses the 4 silver coins onto the anvil face. They make a sharp, beautiful ring, an island of clean, cold sound in the dull room. They are the only clean thing in the shop. He doesn't wait for a receipt or a blessing. He simply starts to drag the heavy axle towards the door. You stop him. Wait, it is too heavy for one man. You gesture to your back. And I cannot lift heavy today. The miller looks annoyed. He eyes the boy. The boy, he has not slept, you say firmly. But you have a wagon and a horse. Come back with 2 hands, one of your sons. You cannot risk dropping this. The weld is sound, but a sharp impact will break the temper. And if it breaks, you buy the new iron. The unspoken hierarchy asserts itself. You are a lower class than the free peasant miller, but you possess the soul knowledge and the singular fire. You are indispensable. He scowls, realizing he must comply with your terms. I'll return, he says, pulling the long axle bar back from the door. He turns, grabbing a piece of finished work, the hinge you made yesterday, from the table without asking. For the trouble, he mutters and disappears. You do not argue. The loss of a single hinge is a minor tax on your sanity. The small theft is a ritual of the customer trying to assert a final small dominance. You let him have it. You finally turn back to your pallet, the 4 silver coins still ringing faintly on the anvil. You have earned a moment. You peel off the thick leather apron. It stands up by itself, stiff with accumulated grease, soot, and sweat. You drop it on the floor. You pull off the heavy, sweat-soaked woolen tunic. Your skin underneath is white where the wool was pressed, surrounded by the black mask of your torso. The heat rash on your back is a fierce red constellation. You gasp as the cool morning air hits your skin, a shock that makes the hairs stand up on your arms. You walk to the water barrel, using the last of the clean water the boy fetched last night. There is a sliver of polished iron you use as a mirror, but you barely look at your reflection. You pour the cold water into your cupped hands and splash your face. You scrub at the soot. It does not wash off easily. It is bonded to the natural oil and grease that covers your skin from the hours spent sweating next to the fire. You use the stiff bristles of a small rush brush to scrub your neck and the backs of your hands. The scrubbing is painful, tearing at the paper-thin skin of your knuckles. This is your morning ablution, the moment you transition from the creature of the forge back into a man of the village. As you scrub, you inspect the damage by feel. Your right wrist is swollen where the binding was too tight. The muscles in your forearm are hard as bone, locked in spasm. You touch the spot on your back that snapped. It is tender, hot to the touch. You will carry this injury for weeks, perhaps months, all for a miller's axle. You rinse your mouth, spitting the dark water onto the dirt floor. It runs black, a stream of diluted soot and bile. You pull on a clean tunic, or rather, one that is less filthy than the one you just took off. Smells faintly of stored linen and wood ash. The contact of the clean fabric against your battered skin is a minor luxury, a momentary reprieve from the constant, abrasive world of iron and charcoal. You look at your hands again. The scrubbing was pointless. The ingrained blackness remains, a permanent stain beneath the first layer of skin. Your life is written in the darkness of your hands. The boy has finished sweeping. He is standing by the forge, his shoulders slumped in exhaustion, but his eyes are open. We have 2 hours, you say. Small work, nails, hinges, anything simple. You cannot risk heavy work again this morning. Your back needs to stabilize, but you cannot afford to stop. The village demands nails every day. It is the bread and butter of your trade. You sit on the stool next to the anvil, pulling a thin bar of iron stock from the rack. You instruct the boy to manage the fire. Just keep it at a steady cherry red, enough for small work. He manages this. He is too tired to make it roar, but he can keep the coals alive. You begin forging nails again, but this time the process is slower, more deliberate, almost meditative. You are not fighting the iron, you are coaxing it. You work from a sitting position, which relieves the pressure on your back, but forces you to use the smaller, weaker muscles of your forearm and wrist. Tap, 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 thud. The sound is lighter now, less violent than the blows of the night. It is the gentle rain of labor, not the thunderstorm. The rhythm is slow but constant. You are focusing on the feel of the hammer, the perfect impact point that minimizes wasted energy. This is the hidden toll of the blacksmith's life. The exhaustion doesn't just make you tired. It forces you to adopt unnatural postures, to rely on weaker joints, which accelerates the slow, grinding wear of the body. You are trading long-term health for short-term output. You focus on the small details. The angle of the point, the perfect centering of the nail head, the quality of the iron. You can feel a flaw in the metal, a small pocket of slag, or an impurity by the way the hammer rings, a dull note instead of a sharp chime. When you find one, you throw the piece into the scrap pile. You will not sell bad work. Your reputation is all you have. The morning progresses with this gentle, rhythmic violence. You hear the outside world moving, the clatter of the miller's cart returning, the shouting of the miller as he directs his two sons to lift the axle. You hear the rhythmic thump 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 of the mill wheel starting up down by the river, a sound that, despite the exhaustion it caused you, is a deeply satisfying note of industry. The village is moving because of the piece of iron you labored all night to create. A woman arrives. She is wearing a simple apron and carries a small basket. She approaches the anvil timidly. "Master Smith," she whispers, "I have a small thing. The buckle on my churning strap broke. I cannot work the butter without it." She holds out a small, broken bronze buckle. It is a tiny, delicate thing, a piece of jewelry compared to the iron bars you wrestle with. This is precision work requiring a light touch and a steady hand. You nod, taking the tiny, cold piece of metal. Bronze is fussy. Too much heat and it melts, too little and it won't join. You instruct the boy to keep the fire low, barely aglow. You use a thin, long-handled pair of tongs you forged specifically for this kind of work. You hold the broken pieces of the buckle barely on the edge of the coals, turning them with infinite patience. You are waiting for a faint, barely perceptible blush of red. You pull the piece out. You place it on a small, flat block of steel, not the main anvil, but a small post anvil clamped to the bench. You pick up your smallest hammer, a tool that weighs less than a pound, its face polished to a mirror shine. You tap, ting. The sound is high, pure, and clean, totally unlike the deafening clang of the sledge. You are manipulating the bronze with careful, feathery blows, pushing the two broken ends back into alignment. You flux the joint with a tiny dusting of powder from a horn flask, and then bring the piece up to a true red again, waiting for the flux to bubble and run. You watch for the moment the metal seems to settle, to flow together before pulling it back. The repair is invisible. The buckle is whole again. You plunge it into a small bowl of cold water you keep on the bench. The tiny hiss is swallowed by the silence. You hand it back to the woman. She inspects it, her eyes widening in wonder. "It is perfect. Thank you, master." "1 farthing, you say, the smallest coin." She places the copper coin on the bench, bows, and hurries away, clutching her mended buckle. This is the life, the sudden, brutal necessity of a king's order, followed by the delicate, whispered need of a peasant wife. You must be equally adept at both, equally focused, and both tasks in their own way consume you. The heavy work breaks your skeleton. The fine work breaks your nerves, demanding an impossible concentration when your mind is thick with sleep deprivation and carbon monoxide. You spend the next few hours in this rhythm, working the small, tedious, but essential jobs. Broken shovel haft, a lock pin for a barn door, a set of iron loops for a harness. Your eyes are constantly straining in the morning light, which is too bright for your pupils, permanently dilated from the hours spent staring into the dark fire. The headache behind your eyes pulses with the dull hammer beat in your ears. By midday, the boy is no longer sweeping. He is asleep in the corner, leaning against the wall, his head tipped back, his mouth open. You let him be. The flow of customers slows down. The sun is directly overhead, and the village, having started its day at dawn, is taking its short midday rest. You sit on your stool, eating a crust of stale bread you bought with one of the miller's pennies. It is cold, dry, and provides only the illusion of energy. You look at the fire. It has banked low again, a bed of red coals under ash. You do not touch the bellows. You simply stare into the heat, letting your body rest, conserving the chemical energy for the afternoon. You close your eyes for longer this time. You let the images come. You see the sparks, the white heat, the swing of the hammer. They are fixed images now, not flowing action. You are cataloging the price of the morning, the raw skin on your wrist, the tremor in your thigh, the metallic taste. You confront the one thing you know you cannot fix, the progressive deafness. You cup your hands over your ears. The internal ringing, the tinnitus, is a violent hiss, a sound like 100 tiny snakes perpetually rattling inside your head. You remove your hands. The shop is relatively quiet, but the hiss remains. It is permanent. It is the isolation chamber of your own head. You are already beginning the slow slide into the quiet that comes before the final silence. You look at the tools again. The heavy sledge is leaning against the wall. You walk over to it and pick it up. It weighs 10 pounds. You lift it with difficulty. It is heavy, cold, and impersonal. You are a dying man holding an immortal object. You drop the sledge back against the wall. The dull thud is absorbed by the earth. You move to the anvil. You pick up your 4-pound hand hammer. It is an extension of your body, balanced perfectly for your grip. You swing it gently, letting it tap the anvil face. Ping. The sound is small, clean, almost beautiful. You feel the perfect rebound, the energy flowing back into your hand. This is the source of the beauty and the destruction. The hammer is the perfect tool for shaping metal and the perfect machine for destroying the human nervous system. You put it down. You know you have another 6 hours before you can truly stop. You will spend it drawing out iron stock, making hinges, sharpening knives. Mundane, repetitive labor. The slow erosion of the afternoon. As the sun begins its long, gentle slide towards the west, the light in the shop softens. The heat becomes less aggressive, more comforting. The fatigue descends into a deep, bone-weary acceptance. There is no longer the manic energy of the night, only the slow, determined plodding of survival. You finish the 3 plowshares, grinding the points on the wet stone, feeling the spray of cold water on your chest. You lay them side by side on the bench. They are finished. The day's obligations are mostly met. The miller's axle is turning. The king's mail is riding. The village is fed and secured. You look at the fire. It is time to put it to bed. You instruct the boy, waking him gently. He groans, but he is awake. Bank the fire, you tell him. Deep. He takes the rake, pushing the remaining coals into a tight, compact mound. He covers them with a thick layer of ash, suffocating the flame but preserving the heat. A thin, ethereal wisp of smoke rises from the top, the last breath of the day's fire. The shop rapidly cools, the radiant heat vanishing, replaced by the damp chill of the evening. You walk to the workbench one last time. You collect the 4 silver pennies from the anvil. You put them into a small wooden box on the shelf. The box already contains a few other coins, and the total is enough for a sack of beans and maybe a piece of cheese. You have enough to eat for the week. You have survived. You turn out the rushlights one by one. The darkness sweeps in, clean and final. The only light remaining is the dull, solemn red glow of the banked fire in the corner, a glowing ember promising the start of tomorrow. You look at the boy. Sleep now, you say. Sleep deeply. You stumble into your lean-to. You collapse onto the straw, not bothering to remove your boots, not bothering with the blanket. You lie on your back, the position agonizing for your lower spine, but you have no energy to shift. You are finally alone with the silence, but it is not a comforting silence. It is the violent silence of exhaustion, punctuated only by the ringing in your ears and the rhythmic, rasping sound of your own wet breathing. The air in your lungs feels heavy, like wet sand. You close your eyes. You feel the constant, fine tremor running through your limbs, the after effect of the 10-pound sledge and the hours of sustained tension. You feel the burn of the cuts, the ache of the joints. You are a machine that is breaking down, but you are still functioning. And in the darkness, you think about the iron. The iron is solid. The iron is hard. The iron does not change. It is the one constant in your life, the thing you can rely on. You shaped it today, and in doing so, it shaped you. The thought is not a comfort, but a final, clear acceptance. You are not a free man. You are the keeper of the fire, the servant of the iron. Your short, harsh life is the price the village pays for its stability. You are the anvil, absorbing the shock of the world so others may stand straight. And as sleep finally, totally envelops you, it is the deepest, most necessary darkness. You are gone. The soot still smells on your skin. The ringing still sounds in your ears. The small, red light of the banked fire is the last thing you saw. And in a few short hours, you will rise again to the hammer, the fire, and the inevitable demand of another day. The sleep is a brief, vital cessation, a necessary pause before the destruction begins again.